Hi, Jennifer. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me here today.
Well, thank you. Welcome to ABO. So we're recording remotely because you live in Singapore and I'm based in Hong Kong. So we thought it would be easier, but I would have loved to meet you in person.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe one day.
One for
Maybe
sure.
if
When
you,
I'm back in Hong
yeah,
Kong, would love to meet you in person.
yeah, because you're from Hong Kong actually.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the people who don't know you, you're the founder of Ctrl Alt Career. You're a career coach across Hong Kong and Singapore, and you're also a LinkedIn influencer. I saw that on LinkedIn. Every day you share pieces of advice, you share about your experience to your 21,000 followers. Congrats.
Thank you.
So your job is to help people pivot from what you called perfect on paper job to a perfect for you job. And actually, what catches my attention is that you have a great story. I think that one will inspire people. Two, I think people will relate to it because it's really so people listen carefully to this episode because career coaching wasn't at all a career path you were expecting. So why I said that I think people will relate is because you worked in finance for 7 years before in Hong Kong, and as many families, well, across Hong Kong, Singapore, but also elsewhere, your parents were kind of expecting, they were like, okay, what do you want to do when you'll be a grown up? Do you want to be a banker or a doctor? Basically.
Basically.
Yeah. So I guess it's the same thing for a lot of people listening to us. And because they want you to have, like, it comes from a good intention. They want you to have a comfortable life and significant income to be ready, to be prepared. So you did this for 7 years and then you completely switched career. But it was not like a straight, like from point A to point B. And we're going to talk about this is the interesting part.
Yeah.
But first about the expectations from your family.
Yeah.
Was this heavy on your shoulders? And did you feel that it was kind of restraining your ambitions, or were you just like in this mold and just going towards this direction without asking questions?
Yeah. So I think I grew up with very traditional sense of what success looks like. I think it was very
Mm,
much taught in me that, you work hard, get good grades in school, so that you can get into a good university and so that you can get a good job and so that you can make a comfortable living, make a lot of money. And I was taught that that's the definition of success when you have a good job
yeah.
and you get paid a ton of money. And that's really the most important thing. And so I think that was something that was like deeply instilled in me since I was a young age. I had to get good grades. I had to go to a good university so that I could set myself up for success. And so I think that's how I ended up in finance. I think it was one of those things that I never really made a deliberate decision to go into. I actually, if I step back a little bit to talk about even university days, I didn't even know what I wanted to major in, and so
Mm,
I asked my parents for advice, and my parents told me, since you're not quite sure what you want to do, maybe economics would be a good major because it opens up a lot of doors for you afterwards. And so I was like, sure, that makes a lot of sense. Why don't I go do an economics degree? And
but
so
did you enjoy doing this, or
I was neutral. I think
yeah?
I'm someone who never really had very strong opinions. Even growing up
Mm,
as a kid, I remember when people asked me what my favorite color was, I would be like rainbow because I didn't even know what my favorite color really was, or I never really had very strong opinions about anything really. And I think for me, I have people pleasing tendencies. And
mm,
so when I have people pleasing tendencies, having strong opinions is kind of at odds with people being a people pleaser. And so I think that's why I never really had a lot of strong opinions because I think I didn't want to rock the boat or make anybody upset, or um,
Yeah.
and I think that's also why when it came down to me deciding a lot of things in my life, it was really hard because I didn't have strong inklings or strong interest or strong attractions to really anything out there. I was like, yeah, I could
Mm,
see myself doing economics. Yeah, I could see myself doing art history. I could see myself doing psychology. I could see myself doing all sorts of things. And so I think that's why it was so hard to make a decision at that point. And so, yeah, so I majored in economics. And when it came time to finding an internship and getting a full time job, a lot of recruiters from financial institutions came to our school to recruit. And so that's how I really ended up in finance. I was more, it was a low hanging fruit. I had the FOMO
yeah.
mentality.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I just got sucked into recruiting for finance jobs and started my career out in finance.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess this. Yeah, it's similar to a lot of people, especially in Hong Kong, where
Yeah,
it's a financial hub. So it's the
exactly.
easy way. I mean, the easy way. Just yeah, as you were saying, the lowest hanging fruit, but not necessarily easy. But at least you have comfortable
Yeah.
money.
And I think
Um,
that's what it is as well. Like growing up in Hong Kong, you're not exposed to so many different types of jobs, right? I think it was like a lot of lawyers, a lot of like people in finance, doctors, of course, but you don't really get a lot of creatives or a lot of
mm,
engineers or a lot of different career paths
yes,
that you
yeah.
see in other countries or other cities. I think Hong Kong really is very finance driven type
Mm,
of city. And so I think growing up, that was really what was one of the more familiar career paths for
yeah.
myself. And so I was like, well, I don't know what else really is out there because this is what I'm familiar with. This is like what I
Mm,
was exposed to as I lived in Hong Kong.
yeah, I think this is the. I think it's so important to have role models, or like whether they famous or
Yeah.
just people you know, like your
Yeah.
family or whatever, because
Yeah.
it just gives you like example that something else is possible, like another career
Exactly.
path. Did you
Exactly.
have any?
Exactly. And so I don't think I really like understood or had role models outside of like your finance,
Mm,
law, like business, doctor type
yeah.
of space, right? I think I was always drawn to fashion and interested in fashion, but Hong Kong doesn't really have tons of fashion related jobs. It's not really at the
Yeah,
forefront
true.
of fashion in a way that, Paris is or Milan or New York is. And so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just never thought that that would even be a potential career path for me, even though I was always drawn to fashion.
Mm, mm. So actually there was something you were like passionate about, and then so after 7 years you quit your job in finance, and then I think shortly after that you moved to Singapore, right?
Yeah, I
Or you,
did.
yeah, and then you joined actually like you completely switched and you joined
Yes.
a startup like in
Yes.
fashion.
Yeah,
um,
exactly. Exactly.
because yeah, you've always wanted to work in fashion, like it was your thing. And then you moved there in Singapore, and then like it was the beginning of COVID, so it was
Yeah.
the worst time to move there, and you felt quite lonely because yeah, you didn't know many people back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was difficult, I guess, to uh, move abroad and then being locked down.
Yeah.
And this is actually when you started your own podcast.
Yeah.
What's it called?
It's also called Control Alt Career.
Oh, okay. So it was about transitioning from like a traditional career to a
Yeah.
different path.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so how exactly did you like? What made you start this? Why podcasts? When
Yeah.
you wanted to share your story, or
Yeah. So I think for me, because I struggled so much with my own career, or rather, I had that perfect on paper career, right? I think a lot of people were like, wow, you work in a great institution. I worked at BlackRock. You have great colleagues, great work life balance, good pay. Everything is perfect on paper. And they're like, why would you feel unhappy? Like, why? This is as good as it gets. Like, I don't know why you're still complaining. And I felt guilty for not being more grateful for my job, because I did recognize that there were a lot of amazing things and I really do have it really great compared to a lot of people. But the nagging feeling never went away. I always knew that there was
Mm.
something more I wanted from my career. But the hard part was I couldn't pinpoint what exactly it was that I wanted from my career. I actually knew maybe 6 months to a year into my job in finance that this wasn't the space for me. But it took me, 6 more years to really figure this out, to really unpack this for myself, and also to even recognize that I am interested in fashion and that, hey, there actually is potentially something in the fashion industry that I would want to pursue as a career, because I think a lot of times your passion may be better left as a hobby. I love baking as well, but I would never
Yeah.
turn baking into a career, right? And so it took me a long time in this, those 7 years to really try to unpack for myself, what exactly am I interested in? Is this something that is better
Mm.
kept as a hobby, or could I potentially turn this
How do
into
you
a
know?
career? I think a lot of it was really just around test driving it. I really started to think, okay, if I build a business in baking, let's say I made cakes for people or cookies for people for a living, how would I feel? And so I actually just did that for a weekend, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's actually so stressful trying to like fulfill orders and make so many cookies that it's not actually fun for me anymore. Whereas I
Mm.
found myself time and time again, when I'm thinking about building businesses or starting side hustles, they were always fashion related. Like, even if I wasn't making money from it, like I used to run a fashion blog, for example, or I was exploring, creating my own line of workwear for a while, or I was exploring like importing and franchising some eye mask, silk eye
Mm.
mask, for example. And so I realized that there was consistently themes to what I was doing on the side. Like, even when I wasn't
Yeah.
getting paid for it, I was consistently doing these things in the fashion space. And so I was like, okay, I'm clearly very drawn to the fashion industry. Perhaps I should explore turning this into a career path for myself.
Actually, yeah, like testing, but not without, getting too much involved. Like you can test out many things without like even changing jobs. You can just see,
Exactly.
okay, if I make cakes, what do I feel? Like how do I
Exactly.
feel? Is it boring
Exactly.
to me or is it
Exactly.
stressful or whatever? Yeah, I think
Exactly.
that's a good piece of advice for well for the people listening to us if they are, hesitant and they don't really know if this is a hobby or this is like maybe a potential career.
Yeah.
Um, and then so when you were doing your podcast, then how like what happened because now you're no longer working in fashion, right? um your career coach. So what happened exactly? Like is it like it's funny to I mean, I guess the podcast was kind of the transition.
Mm.
um how did it work? How did it go?
Yeah, yeah. So, um, I think for me, I think about my career decisions as three different phases. So, the first phase in finance, I was really optimizing my career for income. So, salary and pay was the thing that I was really optimizing for. Then, the second job that I had at a fashion startup called Style Theory, I was really optimizing for passion because I was really interested in fashion. And then the current phase of my career, which is career coaching, I'm really optimizing for purpose. And so what
Mm.
I realized was that pay and passion, they're great for the short term, but didn't, at some point, something was still missing for me. And I think for me, I was always trying to seek for some sort of a mission or some sort of a purpose within those two industries. And I never quite found that sense of purpose or mission in either finance or in fashion. And for a lot of
Mm.
people, they do, right? For finance, they could be like, we're helping people retire. Like that's what BlackRock's mission is really to helping people retire comfortably. For fashion, especially since I was in the fashion rental business, their mission was really in terms of sustainable fashion and not promoting consumption, right? And so there's clear mission statements there, but I realized that while I could make a logical case to go or to be drawn to that purpose, it didn't sit, it didn't resonate with me internally. Like these were things that
Yeah.
logically speaking I could find very purposeful, and a lot of people do, right? They feel very strongly about these industries and these purposes. But I think for me, that was never really my clear purpose. And I think my clear purpose came from my own personal pain point, which was my struggles in figuring out what career path to build for
Mm.
myself. And so I think I resonate so much deeper with the purpose that I have in career coaching today than I did in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
prior two roles.
I think it's I like the vision you're bringing because well we hear a lot, especially among entrepreneurs, the word passion. They're passionate about what they do, and you gotta be because otherwise you don't do it. But I like the fact that you just pinpoint you okay money. Well, this is not always the number one priority, and then passion, but actually there's something missing among those two elements, which is something because for some people that would be enough, but actually you need like by mission I hear something bigger than yourself that can feed your your thoughts and your motivation like deeply, because if it's just like oh yeah I'm passionate about this, then in a way you have to kind of be like give back and find something meaningful, and I guess something meaningful doesn't mean it's meaningful only to you. I think it has something in this world that means it's you bring something to the table basically.
And I think
Yeah.
for me, the way I guess that I've internalized this is money and passion are both internal. Like it makes me feel
Mm,
good. Like I have the
mm,
money and
mm.
I have the passion. But when it's something that's more purpose driven, it's external, right? I
Yeah.
think you're trying to benefit people beyond yourself. And I think that's maybe the difference for me. Like the first phase of my career was really around things that benefited me from a
Yeah.
passion perspective and from a monetary perspective. But I feel like at this stage of my career, it's a little bit more outward looking and external.
Mm, mm. And so when now that you're a coach, when you help people find the career that suits them, find what's meaningful to them, how do you help them like unveil their inner desires? Or because it's hard to know what you want to do. um, so how do you help people know what they want even if they don't know it really
Yeah.
yet?
Yeah. And I think that's the difference between people who get a career coach and people who kind of just hack it together by reading books or watching YouTube videos or listening to podcasts, right? Because I think a lot of the times you have blind spots. And so that's where I really come in to help you unpack and see through those blind spots. I help you. So usually, my clients will brain dump and just spurt out a lot of stuff that they're going through or that they think that they're potentially interested in, and I'm able to help them draw themes from all the
Mm,
information that they're spitting out to me. And I think a lot of the times it's hard for you to articulate what it is that you're interested in because it's so internal. It's always been there and it's just always been a part of you. And it's hard for you to then be able to describe that, oh, this is what makes me unique. Right. Whereas
yeah,
it's just
yeah,
so much easier for someone to be like, yeah, you always talk about topic A and B. Like you've always been drawn to the beauty industry. You've always been drawn to the wellness industry. But for you, you might be like, oh, I didn't know that people aren't as excited about the beauty and the wellness industry than I am. So it's just a
mm,
lot easier sometimes when
mm.
you have that outside, external, unbiased person kind of looking in and helping you draw the themes in your life.
But was there a client that I don't know they found out that their new like their career would be that, and like it was kind of unusual career? Do you have an example?
Yeah, so I think one of the examples is one of my clients. She was in the healthcare industry when she first met me. And when she first came to me, she was like, I think I want to move into the tech sector because it's future proof, it's exciting, there's a lot of money to be made there. But I just don't know what within tech to do, right? Because tech encompasses so many different
Mm-mm.
things. And so I said, sure, let's go and figure this out together. But along the way of us working together, we actually found out that she's really good at writing and really interested in writing. But just that she never considered to turn that into anything beyond a hobby. She's like, yeah, I just write for fun. It's no big deal. Like it's not something I'm going to turn into a career path. And so I said, you know what? Have you ever thought about being a journalist? I think there might be something there that could be interesting for you. And she said, no way, no way. Like it's too late for me. I've been building my career in the healthcare space for so long already. I'm not going to go back to journalism school. Nobody becomes a journalist without going to journalism school. No, 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 no. And I said, before you completely reject this idea, just do a bit of research and just see how you feel. Just learn a little bit more about the industry. We don't need to go into it, but at least just do a bit more research to see if it's something that would be
Mm.
exciting for you. And so she did. And then she came back to me and she was like, oh my gosh, Jen, like, thank you so much for like suggesting this industry for me. It actually does sound really exciting. And I don't know why I didn't think about it. And it's probably because of some limiting beliefs that I had. It's
Mm.
something that I should and makes a lot of sense for me to do, but I just never thought about doing it. And
Nice.
so then one of the things that we had to work through after that is imposter syndrome, right? Okay, cool. Like I really want to go be a journalist now, but I don't have the relevant skill set. How do I get myself into journalism? Like, I don't have any prior experience, and so then we basically have to work through building up relevant experience for her, building a new network for her, pitching herself to people in the journalism industry, and she did. At the end of the day, she actually managed to get a job at Channel News Asia, which is one of the biggest publications in Singapore. And it was her dream job. It was writing about topics for women, which was something that she was always drawn to because there's so
Awesome.
many facets between journalism as well. So we really had to iron out what within journalism she was excited about. And she was like, oh my God, I can't believe I got this job offer. This is absolutely insane. Like, I never would have thought that I would be able to get this job. And she was
Cool.
so ready to take a pay cut in the process as well. She was like, you know what? This is my dream job. I'm ready. Like, I love it. I don't care how much money they pay me. And I said, no, 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 no. You gotta ask for what you deserve. And so we actually even managed to get a pay raise for her in the process. And so that truly broke every single one of her limiting beliefs around not having to start all over again and being able to successfully pivot into an industry
Mm.
that she actually is
Mm.
excited about. And she's like, thank God I met you because otherwise I would have tried to get myself into tech, realized tech is not the thing for me, and then been back to square one again, wasted a couple of years of my career trying to build a career in tech, and then have had to pivot again.
Mm. Ah, nice story. Love that story. Very cool. And did it ever happen that you were wrong? Like it wasn't the right career path for a client, and they ended up um, going back to corporate, like to their previous corporate job, or to
Mm,
something similar than before.
mm.
So that's one question. And second, and how did you feel about it?
So thankfully, I haven't been wrong, but that's also the reason I haven't been wrong is because I really do get you guys. I do get my clients to really do the test drive. And I really get you guys to really try to do this for 1 week or 1 month or just a short period of time, just so you know what it feels like. Because so many people jump into the next job and
Mm.
then they realize, 1 month into the job, oh crap, like this is actually not what I wanted or what I signed up for. And it's cooler on paper than it is in reality, right? And so that's why I really push my clients to do the test drive. And I really push you guys to actually execute on doing some form of a project so that you have a really good sense of what it's like to do that. And I think
Mm.
that's how I really avoid the situation where people then jump into a job and then they come back to me 6 months later being like, actually, this is terrible. I need to quit again or leave again. Um,
Mm.
so thankfully haven't had that.
Yeah. and and I guess when you started, as you were not expecting to have this career, did you ever, like, have you ever felt like a fraud? Like you were advising people on their career, and you had also, well, we all had trouble. I mean, well, most of us have or has had trouble figuring out what we wanted to do. But what about you? Like,
Yeah.
is there an anecdote, like a moment
Yeah.
when you were talking to a client and you felt like, oh my God, who am I to say that?
I think imposter syndrome is real, right? I think imposter syndrome hits everybody. But I think And so, yeah, I think definitely in the early days, I was like, who am I to be a career coach? Like, who am I even to create content about this, like on social media, right? I create content on LinkedIn every day, as you said. I create content on other social media platforms as well. And I remember at the beginning, I was like, who am I to even write about this? Like, I have no credibility. It's not like I have any sort of certification. I'm not some, yeah, I've never had a job
Mm-mm.
as a career coach before. I think for sure in the early days, I had so much imposter syndrome. But I think imposter syndrome starts to go away when you get consistent feedback that you are actually good at what you do. I started getting good feedback on the podcast. People were like, oh my gosh, like, thank you so much for creating this podcast. This was amazing. You're actually really good at this. Like, the stories you tell or the people that you interview and how you ask the questions are incredible. And I'm able to get so much out of these interviews. Right? And I think
Yeah.
even with coaching as well, right? Like the first few times I did coaching, I never thought like they were coaching. I just helped people by sending them messages or responding to their messages, or I helped people by hopping on a call and just sharing what it is that
Yeah.
I knew or helping them in whatever form that I could. And I never charged them any money for it either. And so it really happened very organically the way that I built this business. I never did any market research. I didn't do any competitor analysis. I have no idea what the market size is of this market. I've never done financial projections. And it's
Which is not
very,
always the right way to go.
yeah,
depends on
exactly.
depends on the business. But
Exactly.
when the first time, like the first person you coached, and the first time you made them pay for it, which I mean it's normal. Um, how did you feel?
It was so scary. Not gonna lie. I was like, who am I to charge any money for doing this? Right. And I think the
Mm.
way that I came to terms with it was I offered my service at a 75% discount. And so that really helped me to build my confidence because I was like, I was very upfront with them. This is a beta program. I'm just, getting started. This is the early days. And that's why I'm offering you such a substantial discount because I want to get to see if I can do good work for
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
And I admit that I am early on in this journey. And so I think that's how I was able to then, but I still force myself to charge some money. So I think that's the key
yeah,
difference. I think for a lot of people, they let imposter syndrome stop them from even charging any amount of money. But I really pushed myself to charge more than $0, right? I was like, okay, I got it. Even if it's a 75% discount, I'm going to try to charge some amount of money. And so that's what I did. The first client, I gave them a 75% discount. The second client, I gave them a 50% discount. And the third client, I gave them a 25% discount before I went to the fourth client, which I
mm,
charged the full price. And I think those steps really helped me to slowly build the confidence over time
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
I also
yeah. The
pushed myself
fourth.
to
Okay.
to to I really pushed myself to increase my prices with every single client, and I didn't
Mm,
just keep staying at the 75% off. Like I really pushed myself like, okay, the next client I bring on, I must get much better than the first client. And because I've coached already one client, I should push myself to deliver more. And if I can deliver more, I should charge more.
yeah. And the fourth client actually. Well, I guess I imagine they were like, yeah, okay, sure, I'll pay.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is also your own confidence because as
Mm,
you are selling your program, if you're not even feeling confident about your prices and you're like, oh, I don't know, I feel like maybe I'm charging too much. It's okay, you don't have to pay. Like then your client is also going to be like, oh, okay, like I don't know, are you actually that
mm,
good? Like, should I actually
yeah,
be paying you this amount of money? So I think a lot of it is also like when you are selling your program, you have to also believe in the prices and the value that you
yeah,
offer.
yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah. Um, and like slightly different topic, but I was thinking because you are doing your dream job, at least for now, it can change in the future. Like we evolved every day. I'm also doing something I really love. But do you think we all need to be like passionate about what we do? And in the sense that isn't it a privilege as well to be doing what you love and what you feel makes you feel good and adds meaning to your life? Because well, some people don't have the choice maybe, but also some people don't want to put their job at the center of their lives. And is this a conclusion you came to with some of your clients?
So I think definitely I speak from a place of privilege, and I really do admit that I do come from a place of privilege,
Mm,
right? Where I am able to pursue my passions, for example,
yeah,
right? And I think for a lot of people, they're like, I need to put food on the table, and I just have to do what it takes to put food on the table, and I don't have the mind space to even think about anything beyond just bringing in the dollars, right? And I think that was the society that I think maybe my parents or my grandparents grew up in, right? I think at that stage of, or at that point of history, Hong Kong was in a place where it wasn't the way that Hong Kong is today. And I think
yeah,
there's a
yeah,
lot more fear around financial stability and just putting food on the table. And so that's why the generations prior to us really do talk a lot about financial stability and place so much importance on financial stability because they grew up in a very different time. And so I recognize that we
mhm,
grew up now in a place where it's very different and we have the ability to do this. And so I always say, if you have the privilege to do it, why not embrace it?
mm,
I think that that's the key thing, right? So many of us have the privilege to do it, but choose not to do it. And so I agree with you, right? So I think
mm,
passion, to be able to choose to build a career based off of anything beyond money is a privilege for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
think if you
yeah.
have the privilege to do so, why
Do it.
not?
Yeah. And well, we're talking about money, but do you make more money than you when you were working in finance?
Yeah, incredible to, I think younger me would have never guessed this, but I do, which is the insane
Wow.
thing that
Congrats.
I have never, like, I really truly never knew what life would be like on the other side.
Mm,
And I think that that's one of those things that I always tell people is like sometimes taking a half step back might actually be two steps forward in your career. So when I moved
yeah.
from finance to fashion, I took an 80% pay cut, 80% pay cut, which is insane. Like I really never thought I could survive. I was like, can I even survive off of this paycheck? um, and
Mm,
so and so I think for a lot of people, when I made that move, they were
it's the
shocked.
main fear for
Yeah,
them.
they,
It's
and
the
no,
main
most
fear.
people wouldn't do that. Wouldn't do what I did,
Yeah.
right? Because they were like, "That's insane! Like, I would never take a job that has an 80% pay cut because what am I going to do?"
Mm,
Um, and I think for me, and of course, I speak from a place of privilege in that I was able to have saved up enough money so that I could take an 80% pay cut.
yeah.
But I think that that's what it is taking a half step back and taking that 80% pay cut was what gave me the two steps forward that I get to enjoy today. Because I think if I
Yeah.
had never taken that leap of faith for myself, I would have never ended up building a business for myself. And I would have never
Mm,
realized that
mm,
actually
mm.
building a business for yourself, you could make more than you could in a
Yeah.
corporate
Yeah.
job.
I like that. I like that because, well, money is not the first motivation for sure, but it's kind of, I think it's funny to see that, well, you did all of this and now you're a coach. And actually, now you're earning more money than when you were in finance, even if it wasn't the goal, but actually, it's true. So,
Yeah.
in the end, you have everything now.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think
Yeah.
the other thing was I also knew I wanted to have the time flexibility to be a mom, right? So I have a 7 month
Mm,
old daughter. And so I knew pretty early on I wanted to have a family and I knew I wanted to have the flexibility to be able to work and also spend time with her
yeah.
as I
Yeah.
see fit. And I can turn the business up or down based off of how involved I need to be
Yeah. Yeah.
for my family.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, well, it's, well, of course, yeah, same for me. Like, I love to be free to arrange my own schedule.
Mm.
And also, like, money wise, or even like based on your ambitions, I think when you have your own business, there's no limit. Like,
Mm.
there's no glass ceiling.
Yeah.
It's just bright sky, and you, well, of course there are downsides. It's not easy every day. It's not for everybody as well. But actually, you can go as far as you want. Just follow your ambitions. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But I really
Yeah.
agree with you on that statement around entrepreneurship. I think in the corporate world, your emotions and your highs and your lows are not as volatile. It's more like a flat line. Like each high and each low is not so dramatic. But in entrepreneurship, your highs are so high and your lows are so
Yeah.
low. And
Yeah.
similarly, when it comes
Intense.
to income as well, like in a corporate world, it will
Mm.
be very steady type of income. Whereas in entrepreneurship, it could be really fluctuating
Yeah.
from month to month. And, it really is not the cup of tea for everybody, right? I think this
No.
volatility in emotions and the volatility in income is not everybody's cup of tea.
No.
And that's why not everybody becomes an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. But it's been a very
Definitely.
exciting journey for me so far.
And well, you were talking about the fact that now you kind of know your industry, even if when you started it was you're kind of new to this industry, but now I guess also you know you have a team, and I guess you have some other business owners in this area or other coaches. And well, from what observed, like there's maybe it's just my observation. I don't know if it's like a general thing or if it's true, but I see more and more coaches like on LinkedIn or wherever, or in like networking groups. I see more and more coaches, and well, some are like career coaches, some are like help you to perform better at work, some help you to lose weight, feel more confident, speak in public, or communicate better with your partner, like in your relationship, or even help you with your sexuality. Or they're coaches for everything. And I was just like reflecting on that. How do you recognize like a good coach? Because a lot of them, well, not a lot, but part of them, to me, they sound like one day they woke up and they wanted to be a coach, and they kind of preaching like hollow speeches. But are there specific elements that we need to take into account if anyone listening to us is looking for a coach, whatever, like in career or whatever other areas? What should they have in mind to
Mm.
make a decision of hiring this coach or that one?
Yeah. I think coaching is such a personal relationship. So I think chemistry first and foremost, like, do you feel comfortable with this person? Do you feel like you can open up to this person? And do you feel like you can connect with this person? And that ties in with their personal story. So I think for the coach, what I really look at is why are they a coach in this space? Have they
Mm,
what is their personal story, or what really draws them to this? Do they really have that strong sense of mission and wanting to help, or did they just see an opportunity in the market and so they were like, oh, let me just start a business in this coaching space, right? I think I really look for that personal element, like their personal struggle. Maybe they've gone through this themselves, and that's why they want to teach you and help you and coach you in this aspect. And
mm,
then the third thing I really look for is results, right? So client testimonials or client
yeah.
results, like have they been able to get the results that you are looking for? And what do other clients say about working with them? Read through those testimonials and you see, does that vibe with you? Like, does that coaching
Yeah.
style or what
Yeah.
people say they appreciate about this coach, does that vibe with you?
Mm, mm.
So I would
And
say those.
is this what you did you apply this because now you have a team of coaches?
Mm.
How many?
I have a team of 4.
Okay. So how did you apply those what you told me to hire those people?
Exactly. And so I think
Yeah.
the other lens that I did apply when I was hiring these coaches was I wanted them to really understand my target customer. And so my clients are high achievers, people who have that perfect on paper job, working at your Google, your Goldman Sachs, your McKinsey, like really the top tier talent. And so I
Mm,
wanted the coach to also herself or himself be someone who was from that top tier background. And so all the coaches that I hire have come from like your Goldman Sachs, your Google, your Nike, your
okay.
big name company, and they understand what it's like to have it all on paper. But
Okay.
they themselves also decided that that wasn't what they wanted and that they wanted to go into coaching and help other people through this journey as well.
Mm. And are you thinking of expanding your business, like maybe hiring more coaches, or maybe developing online tools or like tech tools or things like that? Because well, it's kind of well, a lot of industries are very competitive, but this one maybe more. now, like compared to before. And I guess to compete with this competitiveness, the human factor is definitely something. And you hired, apparently, like as you told me, the right coaches that reflect also your values, but also to, I guess, the human factor can also be complementary to innovation and maybe tools and technology, AI. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think in terms of scaling the business, yes, I have really grand plans to scale the business. I think for me, I've gone into this business because I want to change the narrative around careers in Asia. I think in
Mm,
Asia, people tend to view careers as you have to be getting paid a lot of money and be in a very prestigious job, and it's really translates into finance law or being a doctor. And so my overall grand mission is to change the narrative around that, and it requires me there's so much to do to change the
yeah,
narrative
yeah.
around that, right? And so I'm only just getting started. So I do have really big plans to really scale the business. I think in the near term, so that's the long term goal, is to really be able to do that, and it can really translate to really tapping into schools and starting the conversation earlier instead of just talking and helping with people who are mid career, which is who
Mm,
I really focus and target now, even starting earlier to universities or even secondary schools. Like that would be maybe a long term game plan. But I think in the near term, I think what I'm looking to scale up is really more group coaching, and really being able to bring more clients and be able to support more clients from a group coaching perspective as well.
yeah, cool.
And so, yeah, I'm
And
actually launching the group coaching program towards the end of this year. So, I've just been really busy working on this, getting that set up, so that we can run a successful group coaching cohort by the end of this year.
well, good news. Cool.
Yeah.
Um, and well, last question. But now I'm talking to your entrepreneur's personality and like not the coach, not with the coach hat. But do you have any? Is there any lessons that you would like to share with fellow entrepreneurs, or maybe also future ones? Something that you learned and that helped you grow your business?
So I think I alluded to this earlier, but I think learning to grow the business from the bottom up rather than the top down was probably my biggest learning in this business journey. And I think what really led me to the success that I've experienced so far. I think really just focus on the next needle moving task rather than focusing all your time and effort on all the frivolous things that
Mm.
don't really move the needle. I think really the 80-20 rule is something I am such a massive believer in. And so I
Can
think
you
that
explain
that's
the 80-20
20
rule
rule.
to
Yeah.
people that may not know it?
Yeah. So usually we spend 80% of our time on 20% of the task. And
Mm.
so what we want to do is actually to spend 20% of our time on the tasks that actually move the needle, which is the 80% of the
Yeah.
impact.
Mm.
And so for me, I really do focus on spending 20% or really spending my time on the things that will move the business 80% rather than spending all of my time trying to focus on making my business go from 80% to 100%.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I think that's one of the key lessons. And then I think the second key lesson was really building from the bottom up, and sometimes maybe just listen to what the market says there's demand in. Because I think truly I never thought my to be a career coach, but the market consistently kept telling me to build my coaching business. Because actually, I didn't share this, but I was actually building a fashion AI startup the same time I was building
Mm.
my career coaching business. And I really thought to do the fashion AI startup because one, I came from a fashion startup background. I had relevant experience. And two, I always wanted to build a VC backed business. And that was way easier to sell to a VC
Mm.
than it is. VCs have no interest in investing in a career coaching business, right? For example.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I really was so committed and really wanted to build that fashion AI business. But the market told me otherwise, right? The market kept
Mm.
telling me there's a lot of demand for career coaching. People keep knocking on your door, people keep asking you for help, people are resonating with your content. and you are
Yeah.
making money from this. So
Yeah. Yeah.
double
Yeah.
down in the thing that gives you result, and double down on the thing that the market actually wants from you.
Yeah, actually, I think, well, I guess we all agree as entrepreneurs that what you do should really solve a problem first. Because otherwise, if it's just like going back to what we were saying earlier, if it's just like your passion, okay, good, but what else? It really needs to solve something in people's lives. And then, well, first it'll be more meaningful, but also it means that it's doable. There's a need in the market.
Yeah,
So yeah.
exactly, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think that that's one of the things that I always tell entrepreneurs, or tell people who want to be entrepreneurs, right? I think if you don't start making money, or if you don't start charging people for whatever your product or service is, all you have is a project. You don't have a
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you need to figure out what people want and charge them money, because I think there's so much fear to charge people money. And I really understand that fear, because I used to be the same. And I was like, I don't know. I don't think I could charge people money for this. But that's how ideas end up just getting stuck in the idea phase and
Mm, mm.
don't become anything more than just a side project, right?
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
want to build a business, you need to get comfortable selling, and you need to get comfortable pricing your services and pricing your product and actually making money from it.
I think that's a perfect conclusion and very, very true. So, people, please, if you want to start a business or if you're starting now, let not just build a project, but a real business, a real company. Thank you
Exactly.
so much, Jennifer.
Of
Thank you
course.
so much.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Carmen. This was so much fun. It's been
Yep.
an honor speaking with you and being on your podcast. So thank you so much for having
Thank
me.
you. Well, it was very insightful for me, so I hope for the listeners as well. I will add all the info about you in the description. Thank
Amazing.
you.
Yeah. And so if anybody wants
Bye.
to reach out and um, have any questions around their careers, feel free to reach out to me via those links as well.
Thank you. Bye.
Amazing. Thank you.